I was resurrecting a dead man's memory when she stepped into my studio. Outside, cold November rain battered the windows while I bent over the 1913 Vacheron Constantin pocket watch. Its fragile gears lay scattered before me like the remains of a miniature skeleton. My hands, steady despite 4 cups of espresso, maneuvered the tweezers with trained accuracy, while my chest felt as fractured as the mechanism itself. "Are you Bennett?" Her voice startled me, making the tiny spring between my fingers almost slip away. I didn't glance up immediately. "Stores closed. Sign says it clearly." The door was open. A trace of amusement threaded through her tone. When I finally lifted my eyes, my breath stalled. The woman standing there was stunning. Tall, with wind-tossed auburn hair framing elegant cheekbones. Her hazel eyes swept across my cluttered workspace with the focus of a museum curator. Rain shimmered on her wool coat like scattered crystals. "I'm desperate," she said softly, setting a leather pouch on my counter with careful reverence. "Someone told me you're the only person who can help." I exhaled slowly, placing my tools aside. Everyone's desperate when something they care about breaks. Her smile faltered slightly, exposing a flicker of sadness. "Isn't that always true?" The air between us carried a strange tension I couldn't explain. I hadn't felt this aware of another person since Evelyn left 8 months earlier. The memory alone made me want to retreat back into the familiar safety of my workbench. "What do you have there?" I asked, keeping my tone detached. She opened the pouch and withdrew an elegant silver pocket watch. Family heirloom. More than 100 years old. As she placed it into my palm, our fingers brushed. The contact sent a sharp jolt through me that had nothing to do with static. I pulled my hand back quickly, forcing my attention toward the watch instead of her face. "Remarkable craftsmanship," I murmured, turning it carefully to inspect the engraving. "Madeline Carter. That's your name too." "My great-grandmother's." "I'm Madeline as well." She leaned slightly closer, carrying a scent of cedar wood and rain that made concentration difficult. "It stopped 3 days ago. I didn't damage it or anything. Sometimes things simply stop working. Like relationships." The bitter thought crossed my mind instantly. "Mind if I open it?" "Please." I carefully eased open the casing, revealing the intricate movement hidden inside. The watch itself was extraordinary, but something felt wrong. A tiny component that clearly didn't belong. Modern and out of place against the antique mechanics. "Someone's worked on this before," I said, frowning. "Recently." Her expression shifted subtly. "Is that bad?" "Depends what they changed." I met her eyes directly. "And why they changed it?" Madeline's fingers tapped lightly once against the counter, the only crack in her otherwise calm composure. "Can you repair it?" I should have refused. My waiting list was already impossible. And something about this woman unsettled me in ways I wasn't prepared to examine. But the watch pulled at me. Its silent mechanisms felt like a mystery I couldn't ignore. 4 days. Maybe 5. I filled out a repair slip, painfully aware of her watching every movement I made. "I'll need a deposit." She handed me her card without hesitation. Our fingers touched again, and this time I was sure she let the contact linger intentionally. "You don't understand how important this is," she said quietly. "Thank you." After she left, the studio somehow felt emptier. Rain continued drumming steadily against the windows as I returned to my bench, but I couldn't focus on the brigade anymore. Instead, my attention kept drifting toward Madeline's watch, wondering about the strange alteration hidden inside it. What I didn't understand then was that repairing her timepiece would eventually crack open the carefully guarded solitude I'd built around myself, exposing secrets some people would do anything to keep hidden. I spent 4 hours studying Madeline Carter's watch that night, long after I should have locked up and gone home. Something about the modification bothered me. A tiny microchip hidden with expert precision that had absolutely no place inside a century-old timepiece. Professional curiosity, I told myself. Nothing to do with the way her hazel eyes had lingered in my thoughts all evening. The following morning, my phone rang just as I unlocked the studio door. "Bennett, it's Madeline Carter about my watch." Her voice carried the same rich warmth that had occupied my mind half the night. I balanced the phone against my shoulder while fumbling with my keys. "I haven't started the repairs yet," I said, perhaps too sharply. "Actually, I hoped we could talk over coffee. There's more context you should know." My first instinct was refusal. I'd spent months building walls after Evelyn walked out, accusing me of caring more about broken clocks than broken people. Yet something in Madeline's voice, a fragile honesty beneath the confidence, made me pause. "There's a cafe across the street. 1:00. "Perfect," she replied, relief threading through the single word. When she arrived at the cafe, Madeline looked different. Softer somehow. Jeans, boots, and a charcoal sweater that brought warmth to her auburn hair. She slid into the booth across from me, fingertips tapping lightly against her coffee mug. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her eyes holding mine directly. "I wasn't completely honest yesterday. About the watch. Or everything else." She wrapped both hands around the mug, her knuckles paling slightly. "I'm not just another antique dealer. I specialize in recovering objects with complicated histories." The cafe buzzed with lunchtime noise, espresso machines hissing and dishes clattering, but suddenly all my focus narrowed to her words. "Stolen artifacts?" I asked quietly. "Sometimes." She leaned closer. "Sometimes worse." A shadow crossed her expression. "That watch belonged to my great-grandmother." That part was true. But it disappeared during World War II. My family spent generations trying to locate it. I thought immediately about the strange component hidden inside. And the chip. Her face flickered with hesitation. "That's complicated. Try me." She sighed, brushing a hand through her hair. 8 months ago, my partner in business and otherwise found the watch at an auction in Zurich. We'd been searching for years. Pain darkened her expression. 2 weeks later, she disappeared. Took half our inventory, our contacts, everything. The familiar sting of betrayal twisted inside me. "I know something about exits like that," I admitted quietly. Our eyes locked for a moment, silent recognition passing between us. "She installed the chip before leaving," Madeline continued. "I need to know what it is. What it does. But more than anything, I need the watch working again. It's the only piece of family history I have left. I should have kept my distance. Should have treated her like any other client. Instead, I found myself confessing things I normally buried. My ex left 8 months ago too. Said I cared more about repairing watches than repairing our relationship." I traced the rim of my coffee cup. Maybe she was right. Madeline's fingers brushed mine briefly. "Some things deserve fixing." The small touch sent unexpected warmth up my arm. "I'm leaving next week," she said suddenly. "There's a meditation retreat at Cedar Hollow Abbey. My therapist recommended it. Supposed to help process everything." "Sounds peaceful," I offered awkwardly. "It's supposed to help with heartbreak." A faint smile touched her lips, though skepticism lingered there. I thought about my sleepless nights and the unbearable silence of my apartment. "Does anything actually help with that?" "I'll let you know." She hesitated. "Unless you decide to find out yourself. They still have openings." I nearly laughed at the idea. Me at a meditation retreat. Me, whose entire existence revolved around precision gears and mechanical certainty. "I don't think that's my kind of place," I said firmly. Madeline nodded, unsurprised. "Well, your watch will be waiting when I get back." She stood, leaving cash beside both coffee cups. Take care of her. I watched her leave feeling strangely unsteady. That night, alone in my apartment, I couldn't stop thinking about Madeline's story. About the mirrored heartbreaks we carried. Eventually I opened my laptop and stared at the Cedar Hollow Abbey website. This is insane, I muttered, even while typing in my credit card details. What I didn't realize yet was that some coincidences aren't coincidences at all. And that watch was about to pull both of us into something far more dangerous than heartbreak. The Abbey rose before me in solemn gray stone beneath a sky heavy with December clouds. I sat in my car for a long moment wondering what exactly I was doing there. 4 days earlier, I'd been safely buried inside my studio. Now I was standing with an overnight bag and directions to something called Reflection Cabin 9. Just a few days, I muttered, stepping out into the cold air. A few quiet days. Cedar Hollow Abbey wasn't truly operated by monks anymore. Years earlier it had been transformed into a retreat center, though the old spiritual atmosphere still lingered in every stone pathway and weathered archway. Narrow trails twisted between towering oak trees glowing amber and crimson. Fallen leaves cracked beneath my boots as I followed the crude map I'd been handed at reception. Orientation had ended nearly an hour earlier, but traffic outside the city had delayed me badly. Now I wandered completely alone. Wind chimes echoed faintly somewhere in the distance. The pathways forked unexpectedly, nothing like the clean lines printed on my paper. Damn it, I muttered, turning the map sideways. I'd always possessed an excellent sense of direction. Precision mattered in my profession. But this place felt intentionally maze-like. The air grew colder as dusk settled in. I shoved my hands deeper into my jacket, wishing I'd packed something heavier. Just as I started retracing my steps toward the main building, a voice called from behind me. Lost already? I turned instantly, and my chest tightened. Madeline stood several feet away wrapped in a dark green cardigan, copper leaves tangled in her auburn hair. Surprise flickered across her face along with something softer I couldn't fully place. You came, she said quietly. I came, I echoed, suddenly self-conscious. Though at the moment I'm regretting it because I can't even find my cabin. Her laughter rang bright against the quiet grounds. Where are you headed? Reflection Cabin 9. You're nowhere near it. She pointed toward a narrow trail I'd completely overlooked. That way. I'm in 10, right beside you. Of course she was. The coincidence felt suspiciously convenient, yet her surprise appeared genuine. I'll show you, she offered. I was wandering around anyway. The grounds are beautiful at sunset. We fell into step together, silent at first. Occasionally her shoulder brushed mine as the pathway narrowed between the trees. So why did you really come? She finally asked. You didn't exactly seem like the meditation type. The truthful answer, that I hadn't stopped thinking about her since our coffee meeting, felt far too revealing. Instead, I shrugged. My apartment started feeling too empty. Thought maybe a change would help. She nodded slowly, understanding softening her expression. I've been living out of hotels since she left. I still can't stay in our apartment for very long. The path curved beside a small pond where orange leaves floated across the surface like tiny drifting lanterns. You know what's strange? I said quietly. What? I can repair almost any watch no matter how damaged it is. But I can't seem to repair myself. Madeline looked at me for a long moment. Maybe because you're not broken, she said softly. Just hurt. Her words caught me off guard. I really looked at her then. The fading evening light deepened the gold in her eyes. Something shifted quietly between us. The air suddenly felt charged. Here we are, she said finally, stopping beside a small wooden cabin. Number 9. Thanks for rescuing me. Anytime. She hesitated before adding, first group session starts at dinner. Want to walk over together? I should have refused. Should have kept some distance between us. Instead, I nodded. When she turned toward her cabin, I heard myself calling after her before I could stop it. Madeline. She glanced back, eyebrows lifting slightly. I'm glad you're here. The words escaped too quickly to take back. Her smile unfolded slowly and genuinely. I'm glad you're here too, Bennett. I watched her disappear into cabin 10 while the final rays of sunlight caught in her hair like fire. Something dangerous unfurled quietly inside my chest. Something I'd sworn never to feel again after Evelyn. Later, unpacking my bag, I found myself thinking about Madeline's watch still sitting on my workbench back in Portland. The hidden chip tucked inside its antique mechanism. The way she'd explained her ex-partner installed it before vanishing. On impulse, I grabbed my phone intending to call my assistant and ask him to examine the watch more closely. No signal. Perfect, I muttered, tossing the useless phone onto the bed. An hour later, Madeline knocked gently on my cabin door, her smile instantly dissolving my irritation. As we walked toward dinner, our hands brushed once. Then again. The second time, neither of us pulled away immediately. I didn't understand it then, but that simple touch marked the beginning of something capable of either healing us completely or destroying us both. The morning bell rang precisely at 6:30 a.m., announcing the beginning of our 3-day silence vow. I lay staring at the pale sunlight drifting across the cabin ceiling, wondering how I would survive without speaking. My entire profession revolved around precision, not only in movement but in language itself. When I finally stepped outside, the retreat grounds felt strangely transformed. Without conversation, every sound sharpened. Birds calling through distant trees. Wind rustling fallen leaves. Even the rhythm of my own breathing seemed louder. Guests nodded silently while making their way toward the meditation hall. Father Elias already sat cross-legged at the front of the room, eyes closed, posture perfectly still. One by one, we settled onto cushions arranged in wide circles across the wooden floor. I immediately spotted Natalie across the room. Her blonde hair rested in a loose braid while concentration softened her features. Meditation proved exactly as difficult as I expected. While everyone else appeared peaceful, my thoughts raced constantly. Watch repairs. Unfinished projects. The hidden chip inside Natalie's pocket watch. Eventually I stopped trying to silence my mind and instead counted breaths like the ticking seconds of a perfectly calibrated clock. When the session finally ended, I opened my eyes to find Natalie already watching me, amusement flickering across her expression. She stood gracefully and moved toward the exit, pausing briefly to glance back at me. An invitation. I followed her outside toward a small courtyard where breakfast had been arranged buffet-style beneath the trees. As we reached for plates, her fingers deliberately brushed mine. A simple touch somehow carried entire conversations. Later that afternoon during walking meditation along the forest trail, I discovered a folded note tucked inside my jacket pocket. I hadn't even noticed her slipping it there. Silence changes time. Meet me at the sundial garden after lunch. The elegant handwriting instantly made my pulse quicken. Several steps ahead, Natalie continued walking without once glancing backward. I slipped the note carefully back into my pocket, suddenly feeling absurdly like a teenager passing secret messages. The sundial garden glowed beneath filtered afternoon sunlight when I arrived. Natalie already sat waiting on the stone bench, writing inside a small leather notebook. As I approached, she smiled and patted the empty space beside her. Thought this might help, she wrote, turning the notebook toward me. Old-fashioned but practical. She handed me the pen. Isn't this technically cheating? I wrote back. Her eyes sparkled mischievously. Creative interpretation. For the next hour we communicated entirely through passing the notebook between us. Why watches? She asked. I considered before answering carefully. I like repairing things other people abandon. Machines make sense. People don't. She smiled softly. Why antiques? I asked next. Every object carries history. I collect stories more than possessions. Is your watch a story too? Her pen paused briefly. Yes. But also a mystery because of the chip. She hesitated before continuing. My ex worked in cybersecurity. Whatever she hid inside that watch mattered enough to destroy our business protecting it. Will you tell me what you discover after fixing it? Her eyes held mine steadily. Do you always need to understand how stories end? I thought carefully before writing. I care more about how things function. Endings are just mechanics. She read the line slowly before smiling sadly. That sounds like someone avoiding their own story. The words landed harder than I expected. Before I could answer, tiny raindrops darkened the notebook pages. Within seconds, the rain intensified violently. Natalie snapped the notebook shut and grabbed my hand. We sprinted toward the nearest shelter, laughing breathlessly while cold rain hammered around us. A small greenhouse stood hidden near the garden wall. We burst inside just as the storm exploded overhead. Rain crashed violently against the glass roof while humid warmth surrounded us. Orchids bloomed everywhere in brilliant colors beneath the strange gray light. Still holding hands, we suddenly became acutely aware of our isolation. Natalie's damp shirt clung softly to her shoulders. Raindrops glimmered along her collarbone. Without words between us, silence became something entirely different. Charged. Intimate. Slowly she reached upward, brushing wet strands of hair from my forehead. Her fingertips barely touched my skin. My heartbeat thundered as she leaned closer, her eyes silently asking permission. I answered by kissing her. The moment our lips met, the world outside disappeared entirely. Rain. Thunder. Time itself. Her arms wrapped tightly around my waist while mine pulled her closer against me. She tasted like rainwater and possibility. When we finally separated, her breathing had quickened, eyes darker now with emotion. No words were needed to explain what had changed between us. The storm trapped us there for hours inside our greenhouse sanctuary. Sometimes we communicated through the notebook. Sometimes through touch alone. Her head resting quietly against my shoulder. My fingers tracing invisible patterns across her palm. By the time we finally returned to our cabins, darkness had fully settled across the retreat grounds. Outside my door, Natalie pressed one final lingering kiss against my lips before disappearing quietly into the night. Inside, I found myself touching my mouth afterward, still feeling the warmth of hers. Alone beneath the sound of lingering rain against the roof, I realized how much noise I'd spent years using to bury my loneliness. The second silent morning began with a guided meditation centered around past relationships. Father Elias handed each of us a small card with written instructions. Visualize your greatest loss. Sit beside it without judgment. I settled onto the cushion reluctantly, closing my eyes as Rebecca's face surfaced immediately in my mind. 6 years together. Gone in one afternoon. I'd returned home from a restoration convention to discover empty closets, missing furniture, and a short handwritten note waiting on the kitchen counter. You care more about broken watches than living people. The memory still hurt, but something about it felt different now. Softer somehow. As Rebecca's image blurred at the edges, another face slowly replaced it. Natalie. Her green eyes. The taste of rain on her lips. The way her hand fit perfectly inside mine. When the session ended, I opened my eyes and found Natalie watching me quietly from across the room. Later, while everyone dispersed toward the lake paths, she brushed past me and slipped another folded note into my hand before disappearing among the trees. Meet me at my cabin after dinner. My pulse instantly accelerated. The entire day dragged endlessly after that. I tried concentrating during breathing exercises. Tried focusing during mindful walking. tried pretending my thoughts weren't entirely consumed by Natalie waiting alone inside her cabin. By evening, the air smelled of pine and distant rain while cicadas hummed softly through the darkening woods. I knocked gently on her cabin door. When it opened, candlelight framed her silhouette in warm gold. Without speaking, she reached for my hand and pulled me inside. Her cabin looked identical to mine structurally, yet somehow completely different emotionally. Softer. More personal. A knitted blanket draped across one chair. Wildflowers rested in a small vase near the window. Candles flickered across every surface. Natalie guided me toward the bed where her notebook already waited open. I couldn't stop thinking about you today. The candlelight reflected golden flecks inside her eyes while I read. I picked up the pen carefully. This feels terrifyingly fast. She nodded before writing beneath it. I know. But some mechanisms fit together immediately. I laughed softly at her stealing my metaphors. We barely know each other, I wrote. Does that actually matter? She watched me closely afterward. What do you feel? The question settled heavily inside my chest. What exactly did I feel? Attraction, obviously. But something deeper too. Something dangerously close to hope. Instead of answering on paper, I leaned forward and kissed her. She responded instantly, pulling me toward her as the notebook slipped forgotten onto the floor beside the bed. Her fingers tangled through my hair while we fell together against the mattress. In the soft candlelight, silence transformed every movement into something slower, more deliberate. Every touch mattered. Every breath. Every glance. I traced my fingertips along the curve of her neck, feeling her pulse quicken beneath my hand. Goosebumps rose across my skin as she slowly unbuttoned my shirt, pushing the fabric from my shoulders. Cool air touched my skin until her hands warmed it again. The world narrowed completely to her. Her breathing. Her skin. The quiet sounds she made against my mouth. Without words, we learned each other through touch alone, creating an intimate language entirely our own. Afterward, we remained tangled together beneath the blankets while rain tapped softly against the roof overhead. Natalie rested against my chest while my fingers lazily traced circles along her bare shoulder. Eventually I drifted asleep. When I woke sometime later, candle flames had burned lower and Natalie sat beside me wrapped in a blanket, watching quietly with an expression so gentle it physically hurt. What? I whispered automatically, forgetting the silence vow entirely. Smiling faintly, she pressed one finger softly against my lips before reaching for the notebook. You said Rebecca's name while sleeping. Embarrassment flooded instantly through me. Before I could apologize, she continued writing. It's okay. Healing isn't straightforward. I quickly took the pen. I think you're helping me heal. Her smile carried sadness this time. Be careful. I'm damaged too. I pulled her back down beside me immediately, wrapping both arms around her as though I could somehow hold together every fractured piece inside her. We fell asleep tangled together while rain continued falling gently outside and candlelight slowly faded into darkness. By dawn, golden sunlight stretched across the wrinkled sheets. I woke to find Natalie already awake beside me, studying my face with open vulnerability. Without speaking, she traced her fingertip lightly along my jawline as if committing every detail to memory. For the first time in years, silence no longer felt empty. It felt safe. Like something fragile and beautiful had quietly begun growing between us. The third silent morning began peacefully, just like the two before it. Meditation. Quiet meals. Lingering glances exchanged across the dining hall with Natalie. But unlike earlier in the retreat, something inside me finally felt lighter. As though years of emotional rust had slowly started breaking apart. After breakfast, I headed back toward my cabin when sudden vibration buzzed unexpectedly inside my pocket. My phone. I'd completely forgotten it existed. Surprised, I pulled it out and stared at the screen. 5 missed calls. 1 text message from my sister. Mom hospitalized. Call immediately. Cold panic flooded my chest instantly. I stood frozen in the middle of the path staring blankly at the message until a hand touched my shoulder. Father Elias stood beside me, concern visible in his expression. Silently, I showed him the screen. He nodded immediately and motioned for me to follow him toward the administration office where silence restrictions could be broken during emergencies. You can use my office phone, he said once we stepped inside. Reception works better there. My hands shook while dialing my sister's number. The few seconds before she answered felt endless. Adrian, finally. Melissa sounded exhausted. Mom fell yesterday. Broken hip. Surgery went okay, but she keeps asking for you. Relief and guilt collided painfully inside me. I'm leaving immediately. She's stable, Melissa assured me quickly. But recovery's going to take time. I can't manage everything alone with the kids. The meaning underneath her words was obvious. I needed to return to Hartford. Immediately. Send me the hospital information, I said quietly. I'll drive back tonight. After hanging up, I remained standing silently inside the office while Father Elias waited patiently nearby. Family emergency, I explained finally. I have to leave today. Of course. He nodded sympathetically. Would you like me to tell everyone at lunch? I instantly thought about Natalie. Leaving without explanation felt impossible. No, I said quickly. I need to tell someone myself. His expression softened further. Some moments matter more than retreat rules. Go peacefully, Adrian. I packed hurriedly, throwing clothes carelessly into my bag while my thoughts spiraled between hospitals, recovery schedules, and Natalie. A knock sounded softly against my cabin door. When I opened it, Natalie stood there immediately sensing something was wrong. She must have noticed me earlier with Father Elias. I gently pulled her inside before speaking. My mother's in the hospital, I explained quickly after days without words. Broken hip. I need to leave right away. Her face immediately fell. Oh, Adrian, is she all right? She will be. But she'll need me there. I hesitated uncertainly. I don't know how long. Something shifted instantly inside her expression. A guardedness. She stepped backward slowly, folding her arms tightly across herself. So you're leaving? The sudden coldness in her voice caught me completely off guard. I have to, I said carefully. She's my mother. Of course. Her jaw tightened slightly. Then you should probably go. Natalie, I reached toward her hand, but she moved away before I could touch it. What's wrong? A hollow laugh escaped her. Nothing. Everything's perfectly fine. But it clearly wasn't. Every part of her body language had closed off completely. Defensive. Hurt. I recognized it instantly from the first day we met when she described her ex-partner leaving. Talk to me, I urged softly. We still have days left here. I'll come back as soon as I can. Don't. The sharpness in her voice startled me. Don't make promises people never keep. Understanding hit almost immediately. This isn't about me leaving now, I realized quietly. This is about her. Natalie looked away. With my ex, it was a business trip to Budapest, she said bitterly. Funny how she forgot to mention she planned on disappearing permanently too. Anger flared inside me. I'm not her. No, she agreed quietly. But everyone leaves eventually. She turned away toward the window, shoulders tense. I knew this was happening too fast. Natalie, please. I stepped closer carefully. I'm coming back. Are you? She faced me again, eyes shimmering with restrained emotion. Or is this just a convenient escape from something that suddenly became real? The accusation hurt because some hidden part of me wondered the same thing. Had a tiny part of me felt relieved for an excuse to slow everything down? That's not fair, I said softly. But even to my own ears, the certainty sounded weak. She heard it too. I could see it immediately in her expression. Finally she nodded once. Go take care of your mother, Adrian. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. That's what matters. Then she walked out, leaving the cabin door standing open behind her. I remained frozen there for several seconds, torn painfully between chasing after her and the urgent reality waiting back home. Eventually responsibility won. I grabbed my bag and headed toward my car carrying an ache inside my chest that had nothing to do with my mother's condition. As Willow Ridge Retreat disappeared behind me in the rearview mirror, it felt like something fragile and unfinished was being left behind with it. Something already beginning to break apart. And back in Hartford, Natalie's unfinished watch still waited silently on my workbench. My mother's recovery moved painfully slowly. For nearly 2 weeks, I divided every day between hospital visits, physical therapy appointments, and long nights inside my workshop where Natalie's pocket watch remained untouched beneath the glow of my desk lamp. A constant reminder. Of her. Of us. Of everything left unresolved. I tried calling the retreat center several times hoping to leave a message for her, but the staff refused to interrupt active sessions for non-emergencies. So instead, I buried myself in work. Late nights. Endless repairs. Fixing every broken clock and watch in Hartford except the only one that truly mattered. You look exhausted, Melissa remarked one evening while arriving to relieve me at Mom's house. Seriously, when did you last sleep? I'm fine, I muttered automatically while gathering my coat. You're absolutely not. She blocked the doorway before I could leave. Mom notices it too. I avoided her stare. Melissa folded her arms. Go home. Sleep. Or better yet, go deal with whoever's making you check your phone every 30 seconds. I didn't argue. Back at my workshop later that night, I finally forced myself to focus on Natalie's watch. The mysterious microchip hidden inside still bothered me. Beneath the magnifying lamp, I carefully removed it from the antique mechanism. Definitely custom-built. Sophisticated. Completely out of place inside a century-old timepiece. I was still examining it when the bell above the shop door chimed softly. Looking up stopped my heart instantly. Natalie stood framed in afternoon sunlight. For a moment neither of us moved. She looked both familiar and strangely changed at the same time. Her blonde hair now slightly shorter. Her expression more guarded. You're back, I finally managed. I finished the retreat, she answered quietly while stepping inside. The shop door closed softly behind her. You left a message saying my watch was ready. Confusion hit immediately. I never called you. She blinked, equally startled. Someone contacted me this morning saying repairs were complete. A chill slid down my spine. Someone clearly wanted her here. Or wanted the watch. Carefully, I glanced toward the partially disassembled timepiece still resting across my workbench. It's not finished yet, I admitted cautiously. But I found something. Her eyes immediately locked onto the microchip. What exactly is that? I hoped you might know. Natalie approached slowly before carefully lifting the tiny device between her fingers. Her expression sharpened instantly. It's some kind of transponder, she murmured. Possibly tracking technology. I frowned. Why hide that inside an antique watch? She slowly set the chip back down. I don't know. Her jaw tightened slightly. But I intend to find out. The emotional distance between us suddenly felt unbearable after everything we'd shared. I needed her to understand. About the retreat. About leaving. Natalie, don't. She cut me off immediately. It doesn't matter now. It matters to me. I stepped closer carefully. My mother's recovering. I would have come back. Something softened almost imperceptibly in her face. Would you? Yes. I reached slowly for her hand. Relief flooded through me when she allowed it. I thought about you every day. She looked down briefly before admitting quietly, I was angry at you. Her fingers tightened around mine. And that scared me because I shouldn't care this much. But you do. She looked up then. More than I should. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Electric. Fragile. Hopeful. Gently, I tugged her closer. I want to show you something, I said softly. Can you disappear for a few hours? Her hesitation lasted only seconds. Where are we going? An hour later we climbed the steep trail leading toward Raven Point, the highest overlook in Hartford Nature Preserve. Evening painted the October sky in deep oranges and fading violet. Do you bring every client here? Natalie asked breathlessly once we reached the summit. Only the ones who vanish into meditation retreats without forwarding addresses. Her laugh caught me completely off guard. Bright. Real. We stood side by side overlooking endless autumn hills while city lights slowly flickered awake below us. When I was 16, I began quietly, my father disappeared. Natalie turned toward me immediately. He packed a suitcase one morning and left without explanation. No goodbye. Nothing. Pain I hadn't spoken aloud in years tightened inside my chest. Rebecca leaving reopened all of it. I looked directly into her eyes. I needed you to understand why I understood your fear when I left. The last rays of sunlight reflected gold across her face. But I'm not them, I continued softly. I come back. For several seconds she simply stared at me. Then finally she whispered, I believe you. When she kissed me this time, it felt entirely different. Not uncertain. Not fragile. Certain. Like finally returning somewhere I was always meant to be. Her arms slid around my neck while mine wrapped tightly around her waist, pulling her closer against me. Cold mountain wind tangled through her hair as my fingertips traced slowly along her jaw. What began softly quickly deepened. Urgent. Hungry. Necessary. Her back pressed lightly against the rough trunk of an old maple tree while my hands slipped beneath her sweater, finding warm skin beneath cool evening air. She gasped softly against my lips while fingers tightened through my hair. I missed you, she whispered breathlessly as kisses traveled slowly along her neck. Time itself seemed suspended there beneath the fading twilight. Our breathing synchronized naturally. Perfectly. Like two mechanisms finally moving together in harmony. Much later we lay wrapped together beneath the blanket I'd brought, stars gradually emerging overhead. Natalie rested against one elbow while tracing circles across my shoulder. You spend your life fixing broken things, she said thoughtfully. It's the only thing I've ever been good at. Maybe broken doesn't always need fixing. I looked at her carefully. She smiled softly. Sometimes damaged things become stronger exactly because they survived. I pulled her closer and kissed her again knowing she was right. Some fractures never disappear completely. But the repaired places often become the strongest parts of all. 6 months can completely transform a life. I tightened the final brass screw on Mrs. Whitmore's grandfather clock just as the front bell above the workshop door chimed softly. Without even looking up, I already knew who had entered. Perfect timing, I called. The Whitmore restoration is finally finished. Natalie appeared in the doorway carrying 2 steaming coffee cups. 3 weeks repairing a clock for someone who barely even checks the time, she teased while setting one beside me. Some things deserve to be both functional and beautiful, I replied. Like us. I smiled as she leaned down to kiss my cheek. Exactly like us. She rested casually against the workbench while watching me secure the pendulum carefully into place. Ready for tonight. Tonight marked exactly 6 months since returning from Willow Ridge Retreat. 6 months of building something neither of us thought we'd ever trust ourselves to have again. The workshop itself had changed too. What was once solely Adler watch restoration now shared space with Natalie's carefully curated antique collection. The front half displayed restored clocks, vintage watches, and rare heirlooms she'd spent months sourcing from estate sales and auctions across Europe. Her eye for forgotten treasures paired perfectly with my restoration work. She found the history. I repaired it. Together we gave those stories new life. I just need to change clothes first, I said while wiping grease from my hands. Rachel and Daniel should arrive around 7. Our fellow retreat guests had somehow become genuine friends over the months. Even Father Elias had visited Hartford recently, performing a small blessing over the business partnership we'd created. Though everyone present understood it celebrated far more than business. As I prepared to close the shop, Natalie disappeared briefly into the storage room before returning with a polished wooden box held carefully in both hands. I was planning to wait until later tonight, she admitted nervously. But I'm terrible with surprises. She placed the box gently into my hands. Inside rested 2 antique pocket watches. One belonged to her family. The heirloom I'd finally restored until every delicate gear moved perfectly once again. Beside it rested another nearly identical watch. Same craftsmanship. Same engraving style. Same elegant gold detailing. Turn it over, Natalie whispered. I carefully flipped the second watch over in my palm. Time means more when shared. Forever yours. N. I looked up slowly. It belonged to my great-grandfather, she explained quietly. The companion piece to my great-grandmother's watch. Shock crossed my face. You found it. In Vienna last month. Her smile deepened softly. That business trip I mentioned wasn't entirely business. I lifted the watch carefully beneath the workshop light, studying the perfect symmetry between both pieces. They belong together, I murmured. Yes, she answered simply. They do. The deeper meaning behind the gift landed heavily inside my chest. 2 watches crafted as a pair. Separated for decades. Finally reunited. Like us. Move in with me, I blurted suddenly. Natalie blinked in surprise. Or I'll move in with you. Or we'll find somewhere entirely new. I honestly don't care. I stepped closer. I just want every morning to start with you beside me. For several seconds she said nothing. Then she smiled slowly before wrapping both arms around my neck and kissing me deeply. When she finally pulled back, her eyes shone brightly. I already gave notice on my apartment last week. I laughed softly in disbelief. Seriously. Great minds, she whispered, repair alike. That evening unfolded more perfectly than I could have imagined. Champagne. Laughter. Stories exchanged late into the night with Rachel and Daniel. A surprise video call from Father Elias. Natalie's hand constantly resting in mine beneath warm golden workshop lights. And beside us both, the matching pocket watches ticked together in flawless rhythm. Later, after everyone finally left, silence settled peacefully across the shop. Moonlight spilled through the front windows across glass cases filled with restored timepieces from every era imaginable. I wrapped my arms around Natalie from behind while we stood quietly admiring everything we'd built together. Do you ever think about it? I asked softly. The chip hidden in your watch. She leaned comfortably back against me. Sometimes. We never figured out why your ex hid it there. Natalie turned slowly within my arms. I decided some mysteries belong in the past. Her fingers brushed gently along my jaw. Whatever she was hiding, whatever she was tracking, it doesn't matter anymore. She smiled softly. I care much more about the future now. Oh really? I teased quietly. And what exactly do you see there? Her answer came instantly. You. Always you. In that moment, standing together inside the quiet workshop, I finally understood something years of restoring watches had never managed to teach me. Time isn't simply something people measure or repair. It's something we fill with love, with meaning, with the strange imperfect beauty of finding another damaged soul whose broken edges somehow fit perfectly against our own. I pulled Natalie closer and kissed her slowly beneath the soft moonlight spilling through the windows. And for the first time in years, everything inside me felt still. Certain. Whole. The paired pocket watches rested side by side nearby, ticking together in perfect harmony after decades spent separated by war, distance, and time itself. Just like us. Some timepieces are treasured because they remain flawless. Others become priceless because of everything they survive. The scratches. The fractures. The careful repairs holding them together. People aren't much different. Every heartbreak leaves marks. Every loss reshapes something inside you. But sometimes those damaged places become the strongest parts of all. Natalie once told me broken things could still be beautiful. Standing there with her in my arms, I finally believed it. Outside, autumn rain began falling softly against the workshop windows just like the night she first walked through my door carrying a silent broken watch wrapped carefully inside velvet. Back then, I thought I was restoring an antique timepiece. I didn't realize she was restoring me too. Natalie tilted her head upward, smiling gently as our matching watches continued ticking together between us. Steady. Synchronized. Certain. And as I kissed her again beneath the warm workshop lights, I understood something simple and undeniable. Some people enter your life like accidents. But others arrive exactly when time decides you're finally ready to be repaired.